Some of the problems that we work with involving decimals will also have remainders. And if the unit of measure that we're working with is not base 10, that can make finding the remainder a little more complicated than it may appear at first. Let me show you what I mean. If I say something measures 2.5 feet, we don't have any problem writing that as a decimal. We would say 2.5 feet. And we don't really have any issues there. The key here, though, is that there are 12 inches in a foot, so it's not a base 10 unit of measure, and that can cause us some difficulty. What I mean is this. It would be very easy to look at that and say, well, then that must be 2 feet 5 inches. But we know that's not the case, because a foot is 12 inches in length. 2.5 feet is actually 2 feet 6 inches, not 2 feet 5 inches. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about, where we have to be careful when we have decimal problems to solve. We come up with a remainder in an answer. We can't just immediately assume that the remainder is going to be this piece right here, because as we can see, 2.5 feet is 2 feet 6 inches, and these two numbers don't always match. Let's look at some examples. A woodchop makes 4-foot-long fence posts from 100-inch-long logs. How many fence posts can be made from one 100-inch-long log, and how many inches of wood are left over? The first thing we want to do here is notice that our fence posts are measured in feet and our logs are measured in inches. We want to work with one unit of measure, not two, so we're going to go ahead and convert the fact that we have 4-foot-long fence posts, and those are each 48 inches in length. So we're going to make 48-inch long fence posts. Now we need to decide, okay, how many of those can I make from a 100-inch long log? Well, we'll just divide, and we'll have our 100-inch long log divided by the 48 inches that it takes to make a fence post, and I get 2.0833. And I think right away we're all pretty comfortable here with the idea that, okay, I can make 2 fence posts. The difficulty may come in the remainder. It's very tempting to say, well, I look at my decimal and I've got 0.0833, so I'll say there are 8 inches left over. Well, hold on a second. Before we go down that road, our inches and feet are not a base 10 system, so our decimal does not necessarily correlate to what the remainder is going to be. If I make 2 fence posts, so I make 2 fence posts that are each 48 inches in length, I've used 96 inches of my log. My log started out as 100 inches. If I subtract the 96 inches that I've used, that leaves me with 4 inches left over. The thing I want to caution you against is do not just assume that the decimal part of the remainder correlates to what our actual remainder will be. Instead, take a little bit of time, do a little calculation, and make sure you've got the correct remainder. Let's look at one more example. 1 pint equals 16 ounces. If we have 22 ounces of soda, how many pints is this? Write your answer in decimal form. Well, it's not very hard to see that our 22 ounces of soda is going to be 1 pint, 6 ounces. The question we ask ourselves then is this 1.6 pints? Because that sure would be convenient if 1.6 ounces was the same as 1.6 pints. But let's think about this just for a second. A pint is 16 ounces. So if I had 1 pint 8 ounces, that would be 1.5 pints. Well, If 1.8 ounces is 1.5, then 1.6 ounces certainly can't be 1.6. So unfortunately, we are not going to be able to go that way. Instead, what I've got is I've got 1.6 ounces. So I've got 1 pint, and then I have 6/16 of another pint. I just need to figure out what that fraction would be in decimal form, and then I can answer this question. So I need to decide, what is 6/16 as a decimal? Well, we just divide 6 divided by 16, and I get 0.375. So 6/16 of a pint is 0.375 of a pint. So my 1 6/16 pints is 1.375 pints. The number of pints that I have in decimal form is 1.375. A key step here was division to see, okay, if I have 6/16 of a pint, what is that in decimal form? And the way we get that is just by dividing. 6/16 will be 6 divided by 16. That'll give me the decimal I need. This is the fractional part of a pint that I have. When I combine that with the whole pint that I have, I wind up with 1.375 pints altogether. Definitely not the same as the 1.6 that it would have been easy, although incorrect, to do. Be careful with these, take a little time, and don't look for a shortcut that's not going to be effective. This shortcut here is no good, so don't do it. Instead, take the time, do the division, and then get your decimal answer.